Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7's Editor's Note, and in today's edition, we're going to have a very interesting discussion about Israel's strategic challenges. We've spoken already this week about a number of issues that Israel is being confronted with, but nonetheless, being prepared for the day of tomorrow is something that Israel has to be. Its doctrine post-October 7th has dictated a more aggressive posture to ensure that nothing may evolve into a position to threaten the state of Israel, its very existence, and to deliberate that from a in-depth perspective. I'm very delighted to welcome Major General in Reserve Gershon HaCohen, formerly an Army Corps commander, the commander of the defense colleges in Israel, and you have a long list of positions that you have assumed over the years and contributed directly to the security of the state of Israel, still do in many ways.
I wish.
It's a pleasure.
Good to be with you. Of course.
It's truly a pleasure and a blessing. General HaCohen, today I'd like to discuss Israel from a strategic perspective. We are still seeing, post the publication of America's National Security Strategy of the United States of America for 2025, published just a couple of days ago, does degrade the Middle East to a lower position in the grand scheme of things. It gives Israel more responsibility, if I may say it in such a strong fashion, in which it has the responsibility of ensuring prosperity, security, many other aspects to the Middle East, post a multi-front war that is in many ways just at a break for lunchtime, some may say.
And it became a very concrete challenge.
It is still a concrete challenge that Israel needs to confront. Let's try and dissect it from one front to another and start with where everything actually started. Not emanated from, but started. Judea and Samaria, the so-called West Bank that many refer to as such. We look on the northern areas of Samaria, Jenin, Tulkarem, Nablus, those areas where the Palestinian Authority, which is the creation of Western nations to include the United States, to include, European actors, has become so fundamentally corrupt that it's failing to secure its control over very important and dominant areas. And in those areas, a vacuum emerges where countries such as the Islamic Republic of Iran starts to flood those areas with weapons, with funds, telling them basically, the clans that have been shunned and pushed aside, we're here for you, and we're going to help you overthrow this entity called the State of Israel.
Yes, absolutely true. And just before to give a kind of prologue to all that following description, the main problem of Israel is that we must keep a definite loyalty to the United States, to the White House, to President Trump, to convince them that we are absolutely loyal to their vision, a vision of regional peace. And yet, the Israeli diagnosis is exactly the opposite. It means that the region not only going to a kind of stability in a new equilibrium, but even though the war in the last 2 years is coming to an end, in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, with Iran as well, yet the new threats are not only yet standing to threatening Israel, they are coming to a kind of transformational change, to a form of a new challenge. Not the same challenge as the opening of 7th of October 2023, but if we will take just the example of Iran, they are aware about what happened to them in the 12 days strike of Israel, and they are making a very huge effort to learn all lessons, and they can really attack Israeli targets surprisingly with new weapons, ballistic missiles and other missiles. And the fact that it could come surprisingly, it is a huge challenge for all daily life in Israel. The same about the potential of what could come to threaten Israel from Syria. Of course, we are expecting Syria to be stable with the new leadership of Mahmoud Ashara, but yet there are a lot of forces, radical Islamic forces, that can come to be a huge new threat against Israel. The same about Hezbollah, that are far away from giving up the idea of El Mukarama, the commitment, the basic religious obligation to commit themselves to defeat Israel, to destroy Israel by a process, by a momentum of permanent struggle, and they are not at all agreeing to disarm with the demands of the Americans and the government of Lebanon, and the Lebanese army cannot really deliver the outcome that we want them to deliver, to disarm Hezbollah. And in Hamas, even though President Trump absolutely sure that he can remove to the second stage in his 20 points agreement, yet there is no actual force, international force, stabilization force that can engage Hamas to disarm them. It means that if this is the condition of the Israelis, that we will not follow second stage without delivering this outcome, it means that no way for going ahead to all a new resurrection of Gaza. And then we are coming to speak about Judea and Samaria that you began to speak about.
Before you do, I think two anecdotes are very important to provide as a foundation to this discussion. One, everything is connected.
Yes, it is a networking.
It's networking of webs, as Samuel Huntington refers to it in his book of Clash of Civilizations. It's a network that needs to be understood. Everything is connected.
And mutual inspiration. Hamas are inspired by Hezbollah, and exactly the opposite. The insistence of Hamas not to agree to disarm themselves, inspiring Hezbollah. And we will not succeed to go ahead with the expectation from Hamas to disarm if we will not do that with Hezbollah, and etc.
Which also provides the backing to what the Lebanese foreign minister said. In order to disarm Hezbollah, the decision lies in Iran, which goes the same for Gaza and goes the same for other areas in the region.
And
Now,
we must also mention Turkey, that they are involved,
heavily involved,
in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria.
And in Syria, and in Lebanon, and in Jordan, and everywhere. Now, the other point is, you were talking about lessons learned from the 12-day war and the 2-year war, if I may, by the Islamic Republic of Iran and by all of its proxies in the region. It's not a zero-sum game. What I mean to say is, Israel has also learned and has also prepared for things that may have to take place in a future confrontation that the Iranians don't even think about.
Yet, and also, they are studying the lessons from Ukraine. As a declaration of Chief of Staff of Republican Guard in Iran, that they are learning, making an effort to learn everything from that battlefield. It is the most important battlefield today in the world.
Right, which NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte just last week spoke about in the Foreign Ministerial of the NATO Summit in Brussels. He highlighted Russia is working together with Iran, with North Korea, with China to prepare for a long-term confrontation with all of the West. And that is something that we need to take into account. Again, we have the regional scale, we have the close circle, so to speak, for the state of Israel that we need to focus on. But it is also a layered, multidimensional confrontation.
Multidimensional, including cultural dimensions.
Absolutely.
Because what is the main motivation for the ongoing struggle in Ukraine is not only Donetsk or Crimea. It is to protect the alternative to democrat liberalism of the West.
So we had a long prologue, which provides the foundation to the discussion. Northern Samaria, Judea and Samaria, Israel's eastern front, namely the
Jordanian
Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, what lays beyond, particularly on the northern section of the Jordanian kingdom, namely Iraq, and from the north to it, Syria, in a very fluid situation right now when we're talking about Syria.
And even the Houthi from Yemen that could come to join fighting inland fighting against Israel from Jordan borders.
And we do know that they have plans to do so.
Yes.
Now, we're talking here about Israel is a very small country. If you take it and you throw the territorial mass of the state of Israel in the Lake of Michigan, it actually would drown in that lake. The Lake Michigan is bigger than the state of Israel. So Israel needs a strategic depth of field to confront its challenges. All the while dealing with the inner challenge where Judea and Samaria, the lands where most biblical stories actually took place, are in the heart of the state of Israel. And therefore, the challenges emanating out of there are of most pressing importance. So let's start there and briefly touch on each one of those fronts. What is Israel currently doing, and what should we take into consideration?
The main problem is that after warfare, after a very intensive warfare, everyone, it is naturally, wants just to take an hour of tranquility. It is natural, absolutely. And even though the IDF succeeded to achieve a very extraordinary victory in all fronts, including Gaza, including Lebanon, yet we cannot be satisfied with the outcome that we cannot celebrate even not 10 years of stability. After the independence war, 1948, we, of course, had to face challenges, but the new war emerged at 1956. So we had several years of breakout. Now the reservist brigades are really committed to serve in the fronts in a duty of 70 to 80 days in a year. It is not at all possible to go ahead like that. And speaking about Judea and Samaria, it is not a war with all parameters of intensive war like what happened in Gaza Strip at the beginning of attack, 7th of October, but 12 Molotov cocktails at one night in one road near Nablus against settlers, it is a problem that we must bring a solution to it, a tactical solution. We cannot deliver a solution without troops. So it is an intensive demand for troops with boots in the ground, not to speak about battalions of terrorists that organize themselves in the north of Samaria. IDF succeeded to uproot them from the refugee camps in Jenin, Tulkarem, like refugee camp Jenin, refugee camp in Tulkarem. They are absolutely empty now from terrorist groups, but they just run away to other villages, to the caves in the mountains. And yet we must lead a kind of operation with more than one or two elite brigades, because if we will not succeed to destroy them in the places in which they are organized, they will attack Tel Aviv, as it happened in 2022. They came to Tel Aviv from Jenin. So it is not that we are acting in the villages eastern to Jenin, like Tubas, due to expectations for occupation. We are doing that in order to defend Tel Aviv, literally. And this is an ongoing effort, demanding troops, demanding intelligence. It is very effective due to the effort of Shabak that could be involved in the territory, in comparing it to the lack of intelligence coming from agents in Gaza because of the fence, that it created a kind of absolute discrimination. They have been there beyond the fence and we are on the other side. So how you can come to create agents and to deliver intelligence? Now we can do that due to the fact that we are involved in the territory. It means that we must be there, actually, literally, to defend the small cities of the small seashore with the cities of Israel.
So just to translate this part for the sake of our viewers, if you look at the proximity between the referred to villages and towns, refugee camps are pretty much towns of people who fought against the state of Israel and retreated to certain areas within the so-called 1967 lines, where Jordan has been present during the War of Independence and the subsequent period. Those areas very often are just a couple of miles from Tel Aviv.
15 kilometers from a refugee camp in Tulkarem to Netanya.
Right.
And it is less than a kilometer from Road 6 that is full with Israeli traffic all 24 hours a day.
Of strategic importance. And therefore, when Israel operates in those areas against people who are proactively working to plant terror infrastructure next to the state of Israel, merely a few kilometers away, 15 kilometers away from Netanya. Netanya from Tel Aviv is roughly 30 minutes drive. So
20 minutes.
20 minutes. I mean, that says something. So when Israel operates there, irrespective of what the international community in the United States, Europe, or elsewhere might say about Israeli activities, counter-terror activities in those areas, if terror infrastructure opens up there, we will start seeing rockets being launched from those areas onto Tel Aviv, which is Israel's commercial center. And that is something that Israel cannot accept, no matter what. So while Iran and those actors are directly operating in order to facilitate this infrastructure, to eradicate the state of Israel, and they say so openly, Israel needs to ensure that those efforts are being curtailed, thwarted, and denigrated completely. Now, let's take that and point out that the operation that was Wavesbreaker, you spoke about 2022, Shovel Galim, the IDF in cooperation with the ISA or Shin Bet and border police special operators of Yamas and such, operated against those terror groups, particularly Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Lion's Den, which was erected by the Iranians and others, and have been so successful in denigrating those terror infrastructure that led to October 7th. Because Hamas was trying to salvage its terror infrastructure in Samaria, alongside the Iranians.
Yes, it was a replacement for what they cannot do in the border of Gaza.
Right.
But much more important is to emphasize just another dimension regarding to
very briefly, because we want still to touch on Gaza.
The gap of the Israeli society. That's an information I got directly from Chief of Staff those time, Herzl Levy. He realized that there is a huge danger in refugee camp of Jenin. The division commander of Judea and Samaria offered him a very well-planned operation with elite units for 3 days, very concerned not to come to damage for uninvolved civilians. And he just gave permission to that operation. He came with this to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and Prime Minister Netanyahu realized that he cannot give okay to that operation because people will say that it is in order to protect his political interests. So the permission was not coming from Prime Minister. Then 1 week later, there was another terroristic attack near Tel Aviv, and then it was not a choice but to give a permission. And then, even though he hesitated, the people accused Chief of Staff Halevi that he is working in order to deliver political interests for Netanyahu.
Amazing. You know, it's Henry Kissinger was the one who said Israel has no foreign policy, but only domestic policy. And we see that, regrettably, and I say this with a heavy heart, the state of Israel needs to forgo its political misconceptions and start to act to its own national security interests.
That is a very necessary process, must be done.
Now, because we don't have very much time left, the two theaters that are derived of that, we are currently in the Gaza stage where Israel is preparing, of course, trying to help facilitate President Trump's 20-point plan. Through the CMCC, under U.S. guidance and directives, you see the IDF constrained in the areas that are not beyond the yellow zone. In contrast to Lebanon, where Israel is fully engaged in degrading Hezbollah's capabilities on the ground. And I do believe that at some point this will get out of hand because, as I mentioned earlier, in those two theaters, it's up to Iran whether or not it's going to encourage Hamas and Hezbollah not to continue engaging in hostilities and to degrade themselves for the purpose of survival and then fighting in
but even Turkey as well supporting Hamas to go ahead to be equipped as part of identity, as a necessary dimension of their commitment to free Palestine. And to free Palestine is not two-state solution. It is from the river to the sea.
It's degrading Israel and granting the Arab inhabitants of the land, the Muslim inhabitants of the land, control over Israel at large and Jerusalem in particular.
And therefore, what Hamas are now declaring that they can admit to give up their weapon, but to give it to the new state of Palestine at the moment it will be established.
And then they demand a democratic election process because they know that they will be elected. Now, we have 2 minutes left, and we did not cover everything that we want to cover. Unfortunately, 30 minutes is not enough to cover even 5% of what we should cover. But nonetheless, looking at the theaters right now, it does seem that the tranquility you spoke of that everybody aspires to post a multi-front war is only going to be relatively brief, and this is the assessment. What are we to take out of that, and what should we prepare for?
It is a main challenge for the main principles of Israeli international the security deep perception and deep approach. It means that it is a huge theory that must take a change, because if we cannot deliver an absolute feeling of security and stability, even for a year, it means that we must find a new synchronization in the main tension that Ben-Gurion was aware about it. It means what is intention that in one side he was really aware that we cannot be Sparta. It means that we must keep a promise that here in this promised land, the Jews will get a new future with a lot of promises for stability, prosperity, etc. On the other side, the realizations that we must keep ourselves in alert to face the threats and to be ready for an ongoing struggle. These are two sides of the Israeli existence that are not at all coherent. They are in a kind of contradiction, and the leaders must find a point of equilibrium in that unsolved tension.
Absolutely. Well, General HaCohen, it's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. And also point out today is, we are in December, of course. This is the last month of the year. And TV7 Israel, as you may be aware, is a donation-based organization here to provide you with insight and educate you with all the complexities that the state of Israel is facing, both directly and indirectly. So with this, we are at year's end, and therefore